first of all, thanks again for being here. And if we could start
I'm
by
honored.
Great. Maybe we could start by you just stating your name, branch of service, and when you served.
Okay. My name is Craig Burnette. I was in the U.S. Army, and I was a first lieutenant. Actually, at one point, I became a captain before I de-roast out. And I served from 1968 to 1972.
1972.
Yes, sir.
1 or 2 tours in Vietnam?
One part of another one.
Okay.
I didn't complete the second tour.
Okay. What was unit you were served with in Vietnam?
Well, the first unit I was with was 3rd Brigade, 82nd Airborne. B Troop, 1st 17th Cav, and also 1st of the 08 and 2nd of the 05. I rotated amongst those units.
So 82nd Airborne is, of course, a pretty storied unit, paratroopers and all. How many trips did you ever?
Oh, just qualifying 5. Because after I finished, I got ordered to Nam.
Never jumped in Nam, but didn't use parachutes too much.
No. I tell people all the time, if they'd counted up the times I jumped out of a helicopter and added all those 8 to 10 feet at a time or 6 feet at a time, I probably got at least one more drop in anyway.
So, add those feet together.
Add those feet together. Many times I jumped out of a helicopter. So yeah.
Well, in those units, you obviously saw some pretty serious conflict and action in Vietnam. Is there a particular story there that you might share with us here for a moment or so?
I think one of the stories that, there's actually a couple of 3 stories that stand out for me. We were working outside a village one time. It was called a friendly village, and in our jargon back then, a friendly village was a village that was in what we called a restricted fire zone. And so if we got fired upon from that village or the surrounding area, as a platoon leader, I had to call back up to get permission to return fire. Right, and some point I was told, I don't remember this, but if I called my company commander for permission, sometimes my company commander had to call higher to get their permission.
That would all take a lot of time.
And in the meantime, you're hugging the ground and trying to take care of your men and stuff like that and trying to make a decision. If you were in an unrestricted or free fire zone, if you got shot at, well, you didn't even have to get shot at. If you saw somebody in that area, they were labeled enemy. So you took them all. It was a free fire zone.
Right.
We were in the village or around the village, which was a restricted fire zone. And we got into contact with the enemy. And so during the ensuing back and forth battle and pot shots and trying to figure out where everybody is and advancing on the enemy and being aware, there's civilians in that village. Right. And you don't want to hurt civilians. A lot of
responsibility for a young person.
It is. So when we got to the Ville, when we finally moved into the village and got in there was a young Vietnamese boy, maybe 6, 7 years old, and he had been hit. And I can't tell you if it was from enemy fire or our fire. I don't know. He was in bad shape. And so I called my medic, my medic was usually with me. In my little command area, it was me, the RTO, the medic, and the forward observer, if we had one, for the artillery.
Right.
That was it within my little control place. And so I had the medic real close to me, and we went over there to see the young man and see if we could help him out, young boy. I watched his last breath, and that was just, that was tough.
Still tough for you today.
It is. That was tough. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't tough to watch my own men get shot and wounded and had to carry them off the battlefield and load them up in the choppers. It was tough, but he was a child. He was a child. Our average age in Vietnam was young anyway. We're about 19 and a half. I was the old man in the company, at 22. I was the officer with the old men, They called you the old man, that's right, especially when you were the company commander.
Exactly.
So the idea being that, here's a 7-year-old innocent bystander, I guess you call him, The jargon they used was collateral damage. No, it wasn't collateral damage. It was a young human being. Those were tough times. I'll just say it that way.
That would obviously be tough. And thinking about something like that and taking you back earlier for a few moments.
Yes, sir.
At some point, you made a decision to go into the military.
Yes, sir.
And you may or may not have known those kind of situations might be there. But
right.
You had to make that decision. Why did you do it?
Well, actually, I'd like to say it was because of country patriotism, and it was to a certain degree. A lot of my relatives, uncles and stepdad and others had served. Okay, so it was part of what you did when you were part of the Burnette family.
Following others.
I was following others, but I got lucky and was able to go to college first, okay? And so a ROTC instructor, a captain or a major, I can't remember which, came walking in one day to this classroom and said, if y'all want to get commissioned in the Army when you get out, if you sign up now, we'll pay you $40 a month. I put both hands up. I said, I'm in. Yeah, $40 a month is a lot of money back then. This is in 64, 65.
Yeah. So in college itself is when you decided.
That's right. So I decided to go in. I was in good health. I played sports in college, so I knew I was physically good. I knew I was going to be drafted. The war was building up, and I kept current with current events, and the war was building, and they were needing more and more troops. And so I figured, you're going to get drafted. Why not go in, get money right now, go as an officer, which is extra money. I mean, I admit it was extra money, but go in there, and I knew I was going in anyway. So why not do it this way? So
thinking about some of those individuals and your time in the military, is there a particular person, because a lot of us think back on particular leaders or particular colleagues that meant a lot to us.
Yeah.
Anybody in your military service that still stands out? Wow, this guy made an impact on me.
That's a really good question. I mean, I can think of a couple of, I'll call them fellow lieutenants.
There you go.
That I was with in Vietnam, that just really, they stood out, and they stood out in ways that maybe most people wouldn't think about. They were the bravest guy in the company or something like that, but they were just, I'd like to think that I tried to emulate them as much as I could, because I watched them take care of their men, and I was trying to take care of my men too. I mean, we were always told when I was coming up, the way we were taught in the officer corps was you take care of the mission and you take care of your men. Well, I got to tell you, in Vietnam, I had to reverse that sometime. Not because the mission wasn't going to get done, it wasn't important, especially if it was a mission of helping another unit in contact.
Right.
But if I was supposed to encircle that village and sweep it, and stuff like that, and that was my mission, I was going to do that. But if I had been told that we're going to use certain ways of going there, and I realized that's not too smart, I've been here before, let's go another way, then I'd go another way. I was trying to take care of my men.
Initiative.
That's right. I use my
important. There's training, right? I mean, do you think that the training side of things in the military was very effective for you? A lot of people, we talk about how we go to a lot of schools. There's always training. Somebody's trying to show you how to do something.
Right.
Did you find that to be the case too?
I did. Yeah, I did. In terms of special, let me tell you, I went to something called a jungle warfare school.
Right.
In Panama before I went to Vietnam. I remember a couple of the SF guys that would sit and talking to us, and they had probably multiple tours by that time in Vietnam, and they were back here in Panama running the jungle warfare school, and they pretty much talked in that way, about let's make sure your men are ready to go, and you're protecting them too as you and look at the mission in that regard as well. Now, again, let me go back. If one of my sister units was in trouble, it's Katie bar the door. We're going to get there. One way or another, we're going to get there. I'm the first one to say I believe in my God and family and country and the patriotic duty. But none of those really flashed across my mind when we were in contact. What flashed across my mind was the guy to my right, the guy to my left, the man on my six. If my point man was knocked down, it was about us taking care of one another and trying to survive what was going on, which is accomplish the mission and take care of one another. Right. So it was it's the strongest brotherhood, sisterhood I think you'll ever, for me, I'll ever experience.
Carries on even after the military, right? I mean, you're involved with veterans groups.
Yeah.
You do things for veterans.
Oh, yeah.
Is that explained by that brotherhood?
It's really interesting you'd say that. And let me go back to the sisterhood. My wife, who's passed away, God rest her soul, Karen Johnson, she was a nurse in Vietnam. And her time in Vietnam, she was the 24th of VAC. She would talk to me after we met in 71 and married in 72. And after listening to her and her stories of as they brought the casualties in, the dust offs were bringing them in, I told her time and time again, hon, you had it worse than I did. My casualties were shipped out. You watched them every frickin' day. I didn't have casualties every day, but you did. And so anyway, but back to the brotherhood, nothing like it. I in 1979, program started within the VA. It was called the Veterans Administration back then. Max Cleland, triple amputee Vietnam veteran, lieutenant type, got both legs and an arm blown off.
I remember him, yes.
You remember Max? Yeah, Max started what was called Vietnam era Veterans Outreach Centers. and it was for Vietnam veterans. Now remember, 1979, war was over in 75 officially, and there were a lot of Vietnam veterans that didn't think they were being treated fairly by the VA, etc.
Right.
So he started these groups, these counseling centers for Vietnam veterans. I was fortunate enough to start one in 1980, actually, in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was finishing my doctorate in psychology there. I spent the next 30 years treating veterans at some point.
Heavily involved in
So to me, while it was a profession, it was personal. Okay,
yeah.
I mean, it was just my profession united with my personal thing of taking care of veterans and taking care of the brothers and sisters out there. The last 15 years,
connection to that brotherhood, I was inspired.
It kept doing it. I mean, I thought, why wouldn't I do this?
Yeah.
In the last 15 years of my career in the VA, about 15, I worked specifically with, when I originally started, it was just Vietnam veterans, because that's what the program was for. But later on, I started working with homeless veterans. And since I retired, I'm still involved at some level in the community with that. So yeah, I had no idea that walking through the rice paddies, and sometimes riding through the rice paddies in the jungle, I used to call it OJT, on-job training, for what I was going to do the rest of my life in a little bit different environment, but still trying to take care of the people I was serving with. So
thinking of people that you're serving with and those that might serve someday in the future.
Sure.
One question that I like to ask is,
sure,
what would you tell a young person today about why they might benefit from going in the military service?
Sure. Well, I think it's one of the proudest professions I think you can be a part of. Serving your country in whatever capacity, and it doesn't have to be in combat. It doesn't have, just serving your country, giving of yourself to your country in some form or fashion, I think is wonderful to do. I'd also say to them that I think a lot of our young people nowadays don't get challenged enough mentally and physically. And trust me, you're going to get challenged physically and mentally in the military. And sometimes I believe it's actually tougher mentally than it is physically.
I think you're right.
Your
a
body
good challenge encourages
that's right.
character, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, yeah, it's a challenge to run 5 miles with a 50-pound ruck or something like that on it. But on the 4th mile, it's not that your body can keep going, it's can you mentally tell your body to keep going and make it take action. So, and it's not just all that. I mean, mentally, when you're challenged by a job, when you're challenged by what you're doing, you will see and meet challenges almost every day of your service. And they're good challenges too. I'm not talking bad challenges. I'm talking good things to recover. I remember that I used to tell young people, when you get out of the military, no matter if you're in there 2 years, 4 years, 20, 30, 40, when you get out, trust me, you'll be prepared for anything that comes your way in civilian life.
Well said. Yeah.
I guarantee you will be ready.
If you can make it
there, you can make it anywhere in civilian life. Will it be different? Yeah, but you can make it.
I do want to thank you again for your service.
Well, thank you, Colonel.
Part of this program here today. Part of why we're doing this is encourage service and
right.
Tell a few stories about our veterans in the community here.
Yeah. Well, as I tell people all the time, the older I get, the braver I was. So at least I didn't have to tell any particular war stories in terms of. Thank you, Colonel.
You, my friend.
Good to see you. Thank you, sir.